In the dark annals of criminal history, there are names that haunt us, stories that send shivers down our spines. Today, we plunge into the chilling saga of John Balaban, a name forever etched in the darkest corners of Adelaide's past. Welcome to Claws and Crime Chronicles, where we dive deep into the dark and enigmatic world of true crime and mysteries. Adelaide, known for its serene beauty, became the backdrop for a series of gruesome crimes. Join us as we unravel the enigma of John Balaban, the city's first serial killer who cast a long shadow over this peaceful community. Born at Nabib in western Romania on April 13, 1924, John Balaban's family life was intensely troubled. His mother left his father because of his cruelty towards her, and, shortly afterwards, Balaban's father hanged himself. In 1944, Balaban began to read books on philosophy and came to the conclusion there was no God. Despite his atheism, Balaban claimed God appeared to him on one occasion and told him to do anything his conscience dictates and he will be happy. In May 1946, he spent time in a psychiatric hospital in Cluj for depression. During this period of his life, Balaban obtained a degree in physics and metallurgy. He joined the Romanian army for 9 months, but escaped to France in October 1947. In France, his depression returned. On the night of February 22, 1948, or the early hours of the following morning, Balaban murdered a 32-year-old Polish woman, Riva Quaz, at her studio apartment in the Auteuil district of Paris, near the Porte de Saint-Cloud. Quaz was working in Paris as a chemist, and her body was discovered 5 days after her murder. According to his later confession, Balaban was in a rage because the woman did not want to engage in sexual intercourse, and strangled her. The murder of Riva Quaz remained unsolved until Balaban was detained and charged for murders committed in Australia. In April 1953, the Adelaide police informed Alexander Duncan, the chief commissioner of the Victorian Police and the Australian rapporteur for Interpol, that the prisoner had confessed to the murder of a woman named Riva Quaz in Paris in 1948. Balaban made a written confession of the murder in his condemned cell at Adelaide Gaol. As part of his confession, he answered questions submitted by the French authorities where he recalled street names and house numbers in connection with the murder. He said, "I did not have any intention of killing her, but I had the feeling I had to." He was never convicted for this crime in France. Balaban emigrated to Australia in 1951 at the age of 29. He arrived in Australia in January 1951 aboard the Hellenic Prince, part of the extensive post-war immigration to Australia. Balaban's occupation on his immigration record was listed as chemist. The vessel carried 954 passengers, representing 18 nationalities from all parts of Europe. Most of the immigrants were displaced persons. During the voyage to Australia, Balaban had a fight with a migration official and was locked up in the ship's cells. The passengers on the Hellenic Prince were to have disembarked at Fremantle, but instructions were received during the voyage to proceed to Melbourne. By early November 1951, John Balaban was living in Adelaide, South Australia. During his time in Australia, Balaban was employed in such work as grape picking, oxy-welding and labouring. Even though newspaper reports claimed he was an industrial or metallurgical chemist, he was unable to find work in this field in Australia. His depression again reared its ugly head and caused Balaban to believe everybody was against him because he was a newly arrived migrant. Balaban met a divorced woman named Thelma Cadd, who was the proprietor of a cafe called the Sunshine Snack Shop in Gouger Street, Adelaide. She lived above the cafe with her 6-year-old son Philip. Thelma's 65-year-old mother, Susan Ackland, often stayed there. John Balaban and Thelma Cadd, née Ackland, were married on September 27, 1952 in the Clayton Congregational Church in the Adelaide suburb of Norwood. Despite getting married, Balaban's mental state did not improve. He blamed his unhappiness on his wife, Thelma, who retaliated by complaining about his erratic behavior. By December 1952, the couple had separated and Balaban was living in a room in Gover Street, North Adelaide. In his desire to escape his wife's criticism, Balaban spent a great deal of time away from home drinking at the Royal Admiral Hotel a few blocks away. There, he met a woman, Zora Cusick, who invited Balaban back to her house. After the couple slept together, Zora made the fatal mistake of admitting to Balaban she was a sex worker and asked him for £5. Balaban felt the same disgust as he had for Riva Quaz, the woman he'd murdered 5 years before in Paris. He strangled the unwitting woman, then cut Zora's throat and slit open her chest and stomach. In an unsworn statement, he was reported to have said, "I did not feel sorry for killing Cusick, and I think I was quite justified in doing so, because anybody could tell she was a low woman and deserved to die." Balaban was arrested in January 1953 and sent to trial, but, amazingly, he was released due to a lack of evidence. He returned to live with his wife in February. Marriage problems remained, and depression's well-known black dog continued to follow Balaban everywhere. When Balaban went out for a drink on April 11, 1953, he attacked Dorothy Rowan, a store employee, in a public restroom. She informed the authorities that while trying to kiss her, Balaban struck her face and grabbed her throat. Balaban fled when Dorothy beat him off. He later told the police that he found a bar of iron and put it in his pocket in case somebody attacked him, and then he could hurt the person. True to his word, Balaban attacked several people with the iron bar, one of them, an innocent man lying on the banks of the city's River Torrens with his girlfriend. He admitted that he didn't know why he hit the man with the iron bar, but he disapproved of him as he did of people lying on the banks of the Torrens and making love, and that was a very bad thing to do. Balaban finally returned to his home above the cafe, heavy-hearted, covered in blood, tired, dirty and desperately unhappy. Balaban dreaded what his wife would say when she saw him. It was then he made a sudden, fateful decision. Balaban stated, "I decided in an instant to kill my wife because she was the cause of my condition and of me fighting that night." Balaban took a claw hammer and beat Thelma to death. He then killed his wife's mother because he said she also made him unhappy. When Balaban's stepson, Philip, sat up and cried, Balaban killed him with the hammer, deciding it was best that the boy die so he would not live under a shadow for the rest of his life, Balaban said. Balaban turned his final attention to Verna Monnier, a cafe employee sleeping on the premises. Balaban claimed she had been stealing money from the shop and that she always took his wife's side in their arguments. Verna, however, managed to escape by jumping out of a second-floor window onto the pavement below. When he was arrested, Balaban said that he only killed those at the Sunshine Cafe because they deserved to be killed. John Balaban was arrested, then tried and sentenced to death by hanging. However, Balaban's defense counsel appealed the death sentence on the grounds of insanity. Psychiatrist, Dr. H. M. Southwood, stated that Balaban suffered from schizophrenia, a mental disorder where the sufferer did not have normal judgment and was unable to distinguish clearly between what he imagined and what was really so. However, Dr. Birch, superintendent of South Australian government mental hospitals, gave evidence that John Balaban was not mentally disordered but that he definitely possessed an abnormal personality. Balaban seized an elderly warder at the Adelaide Gaol by the throat and attacked him in the face after learning that his appeal based on insanity had been rejected. The older man was close and was helped by two younger warders. Balaban reportedly took 2 blows to the face before being led back to his cell to await his execution, according to press accounts. While in Adelaide Gaol, awaiting his execution, Balaban compared himself to Napoleon and bragged that he, Balaban, was a great man, just misunderstood. According to legend, Balaban played chess in his latter days. To the very last minute of his life, John Balaban, 29 years old, couldn't get along with people. Even as he was being led to the execution chamber in Adelaide Prison on Wednesday, August 26, 1953, he snarled at the chaplain, who was trying to give him last-minute comfort, "Why don't you shut up?" At 8:00 a.m. on August 26, 1953, John Balaban became the 42nd person to be hanged in the Adelaide Gaol. Balaban was the first New Australian, a term used to describe migrants who came to Australia following World War II, to be hanged in South Australia. He was buried in the jail grounds in Murderers Row. Balaban murdered 5 people including his wife, his stepson and mother-in-law. He was not, however, a predatory serial killer in the vein of Jeffrey Dahmer, Jack the Ripper or Ted Bundy. His murders were committed less for sexual and psychological gratification and more because of an intense, alcohol-fueled anger towards the people he believed had insulted him and made his life unbearable. As we conclude this chapter in Adelaide's dark history, one thing becomes painfully clear: the tale of John Balaban is shrouded in mystery and horror, even beyond the grave. We've explored the chilling crimes of John Balaban, Adelaide's first serial killer. But the story doesn't end here. His presence lingers, a ghostly reminder that some horrors transcend death. Until next time, stay vigilant, and remember that even in the afterlife, the past has a way of haunting the present. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history's mysteries. Remember to subscribe, like, and share, and leave a comment as we continue to unearth the enigmatic stories that have shaped our world. Until the next episode, this is Kat from Claws and Crime Chronicles, signing off.